welcome back, folks, to another episode of Tales from the Longbox. This is our kind of weekly roundup show. I'm joined by Paul Davis, who's
Hello.
nodding at you as though you can hear that nod.
They can. Hear the things rattling around in my head.
It's a nod of thunder. And Danny Wade as well.
Hello there. Glad to be back.
So,
Very enthusiastic.
yeah, we're gonna talk some King in Black. We're gonna talk some news, and then after the break, I'll be back with an interview with David Taylor II, our first ever guest. And I can tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with David. He's a super cool guy, and we're the world class nerd crew, and we like to think of ourselves as comic book fans, but having this conversation with David Taylor was like I climbed up the mountain to seek wisdom from the long bearded guru, and I was like a child at his feet learning about comic books. That's how much knowledge he has. So hope everybody enjoys that conversation as much as I did. And we may be talking to David again in the very near future. So before we get into our King in Black discussion, Danny, you've got some news, right?
Yes. For Free Comic Book Day, I think the week of March 15th, they are supposed to announce the titles that are going to be there. So be looking for that the week of March 15th.
Comic Book Day, that's a big deal to us nerds. So,
Yes.
another piece of news that I don't know if you've heard about this or not, Paul, but I think it's going to catch your attention and also your attention, Danny, but for different reasons. Todd Macfarlane has announced that he is expanding Spawn into its own connected universe with multiple titles. He kind of compared this. You have to lower the bar a little bit, but he kind of compared this to like when DC Comics opened up to a shared universe, and then Marvel Comics in the '60s opened up to a shared universe, and now Todd Macfarlane is opening up to a shared universe. I don't know if it's quite that dramatic, but there's going to be multiple titles running, and he's brought in some help to make this a reality. And of interest to all of us is the fact that Donny Cates, who is writing King in Black and Venom, is joining Todd Macfarlane to write a Spawn connected title.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
So from one
back
to another.
Back years ago, there was a Spawn Batman crossover. And I think to this day, I may be wrong, but that Batman hit Spawn with a batarang right between his eyes. And for years and years and years, every time Spawn took off his symbiote-like mask, there's a scar, and it was held together by a shoestring that he stitched his head up with. So maybe it's going to be more of a DC image crossover.
Well, I don't think so. He's got plenty of characters for Spawn.
Yeah,
He's got plenty of characters.
Yeah, he's basically saying that he's just going to grow the Spawn line to be its own thing, right? And all of the Spawn titles will all cross over, but like there's going to be multiple different characters who have their own books that somehow tie into the Spawn universe. It's not that he's going to be connecting with Marvel or with DC or anybody like that. He's really trying to build his own thing, and I don't know what that means down the road. But
that's what I was saying. Is he staying with Image? Or...
I think so, but it's not so much about Spawn connecting with the rest of the Image universe as it is just expanding within his own little corner. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens with Donny Cates being involved. I guess that explains a little bit of the fact that he's leaving Venom. So from one symbiote to another, I guess.
Well, that's cool that Donny Cates is part of it. But I'll be honest, Todd Macfarlane, when he gets these great ideas, I could give a rip. The guy he's made some toys over the years that have been way too expensive and way too detailed. He'll go 3 years between issues of a comic. He is as consistent as the common cold and the cure for it. I mean, okay, we're gonna have a Spawn universe. Awesome. So I'll have like issue one.
About that.
Yeah. 2 years later, I'll get to issue two, and it will be non-connected to anything. Yeah, okay, Todd. Yeah, you sit up there in the Great North, keep your World Series baseball that you're holding hostage. That means nothing to anybody anymore. Enjoy your fancy toys that nobody can afford.
I wish you had one.
No, I don't. Spawn toys are just they're $30 for the same thing that the Legends lines puts out for $20 to $15. Come on,
I've been to cons with you. Remember,
what's that?
I've been to cons with you, so I know what you've bought at cons.
Yeah, but you hadn't seen me buy any McFarlane stuff.
And I'll be McFarlane, but
McFarlane's overrated.
I gotta ask, man.
Oh my gosh!
Did Todd McFarlane, did he steal your Cheerios one day? Or?
No, I've never been a McFarlane fan. I mean,
he's one of I think the best artists.
Now, when he did Spider-Man back when we were younger, he was good. And as soon as he went to Image and got the big head, he did some good stuff with Hulk. He drew Hulk for a short time there, back when there was the Gray Hulk, and there's the iconic cover of the Gray Hulk versus Wolverine. Oh, that's all right.
He done Batman well.
Batman well.
A lot of people do Batman well.
Well, we'll agree to disagree.
Okay.
No, I don't want you guys to agree to disagree at all. I just want you to continue disagreeing publicly here on the show. This is awesome. I'm going to gas this up for weeks. I'm going to bring up McFarlane news and tell Danny things that Paul said about McFarlane. Great. This is awesome.
And you will.
I just realized McFarlane's probably my Aunt May. I
think McFarlane is to you maybe what Morrison was for me for a long, long time.
Maybe
Morrison for you too.
True, but I've kind of buried my hatchet with Morrison a little bit.
I have too, honestly.
I've read I've read some of his older stuff and some of his newer stuff, and when he's in his own quirky little universe with different characters, he's great. And Green Lantern is kind of the exception to it. That's one of my favorites, but he's done a good job with it.
Yeah,
that's crap.
He's his regular mainstream characters. So what if Todd McFarlane drew Aunt May? Danny, would you then
I wouldn't hate McFarlane. I just hate Aunt May
more. I'd hate McFarlane for drawing her bad.
That's common ground, I think, that you two could find on the McFarlane Aunt May issues.
Maybe he'd be the one person that would draw her as dead.
Now he might do that. It'd take him 6 issues and 4 years to do it, but
king of comics at that point.
Well, we could get Liefeld to draw her, and she just wouldn't have feet. So.
Well, she'd have feet, but they'd be like big bulbous blocks, and she'd have 47 abs and pockets everywhere.
Pouches. Got to bring out your pouches.
Pouches, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to try to steer us towards King in Black here because
you need to. You need to. About to get back.
I'm sorry if I pissed you off, Danny.
About to get back. No, you're sorry. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. It's awesome. Okay, so King in Black #4 came out. And to be honest, Paul and I, we did a whole slew of comics that we were going to read this week, but I bypassed everything and went straight to King in Black #4. And if I didn't read anything else this week, I'd have been happy with King in Black #4.
That was my #1. That was the only one I read for several days.
Yeah, me too.
It was great.
It was absolutely great.
So, uninitiated, beware. Spoilers are ahead. Lots and lots of spoilers.
Yep.
So if you don't want to know spoilers about King in Black #4, stop listening now. But please come back later after you've listened. So who saw the Enigma Force coming? Anybody?
Nope.
Did anybody have that on their Marvel bingo card? I didn't.
Captain Universe. Check.
Yeah.
Who had Captain Universe for the third quarter? Who had Captain Universe? Nobody?
Nobody?
No.
That carries over to next week, guys. Nobody won the jackpot. Yeah.
I did not see it coming. Was very happy to see it. I haven't seen the Captain Universe, the Enigma Force in a long time.
Oh, long time.
Was it Spider-Man the last one to have it? The last one I can remember.
That's the last time I remember.
Yeah.
If there's been any others, it's been very obscure. But because the Spider-Man one was pretty big and it was cool too. He looked awesome in the costume.
Yeah.
But this thing, man, this might be the best team up ever of characters.
Mm-hmm.
So the reveal of who was talking to Dylan and coordinating the attack through the first part of the issue, I was not thinking Phoenix at all. I was not thinking Jean Grey.
No, I was actually probably thinking either it was Eddie Brock or it was one of the other Venom people, one of the other symbiote hosts.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I was thinking Eddie, and then I had maybe just a little inkling of maybe it's Xavier, but I wasn't thinking Jean Grey. I
even thought maybe Doctor Strange was somehow getting through. You know?
Yeah.
I knew he'd been taken over, but I thought Jean Grey had no clue. But that's awesome.
And I mean, the way they appear is like, boom, Jean Grey. Wow.
Yep. That's pretty cool because the X-Men have been very much background characters in the storyline.
Yeah, they've been their own. They've had their own life basically. You know, they wouldn't even be here if some of their own people hadn't got taken over by symbiotes. They wouldn't care. You know.
Yep.
This is human problems in their minds.
Yeah. So that was a really cool touch, I thought, to bring her in like that.
And it's so great that as they bring these characters in, you're thinking, okay, this is the guy, and this is how it's going to go. Boom. Nope. Oh, okay, here's the guy. This is how. Nope. This is great.
Yeah, there's been a lot of misdirection that's gone on here. We finally got to see Namor do something. It had nothing to do with the Black Tide.
I mean, he didn't do anything. I think his people kind of had one little square panel. They did something, but
they're about to do something.
They better. I've wasted 3 issues with that crap.
Yeah.
Nah.
I like it. I like Namor. Okay, he's a good bad guy, but his storyline just hadn't gone anywhere for this. Yeah, I've been happier if he had just flew in himself and just tried it, his little weeny feet, and just started cleaning the house. That would have been fine.
I do agree. It seems like they just added him in there to get him in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's there yet.
Like maybe there's going to be a push of his character later on, and they wanted to kind of set the groundwork for it.
Maybe in the aftermath or something. Yeah. How about Silver Surfer? That was great.
That was cool.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, here, I'll put the light in me. Then we can get in. Oh, you don't want me. Oh, okay.
Okay, no problem.
It just like stole his thunder completely.
Well, that's part of that cool misdirect, right? Because we were all talking about it last time, like, oh yeah, it's Silver Surfer. He's going to be, his turn to take on Null.
I mean, Surfer is one of the big super cosmics. I mean, I would have absolutely picked him.
Yep.
You know,
and what he was about to do looked like it could work.
Yeah. The Enigma Force is more powerful than Surfer, am I correct? It's the most powerful thing in the universe for a short amount of time, isn't it?
I would think so, yeah. And in this case, it's the exact opposite of Null, apparently. So,
right,
should be the thing to help take him down. And then, the person it chose to inhabit is Eddie Brock. So there you go, with Venom being back in the game and setting the stage for the final issue already. The final
It's going to
issue.
be a big one.
Yeah. It's a lot
Yes.
to wrap up in one issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I got a feeling there's going to be some aftermath and some fallout from this that may.
There has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be.
There'll be like you said, there'll be titles that will be like you said, the aftermath or what's next or whatever. There'll be several titles. I think they'll be after it to try and clean up the mess and wrap up storylines.
I think I remember that there's 2 issues of Venom. One that kind of comes out around the same time as King in Black #5. That'll probably continue to fill in between. And then I think there's one after to kind of be the aftermath, and that's then Donny Cates' last Venom issue, and who knows what the status quo is for Venom after this.
That's been a good run.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
There was a lot in this that was just really cool, and I mean I am on complete opposite ends of things with King in Black and Future State from DC Comics. Right.
Oh boy.
Started out
Yeah.
hopeful with Future State, and I'm sick to death of it now, honestly. And King in Black, I got a little overwhelmed by all the tie-ins, but then once jump back into the main storyline, this is just great. It's a great.
Yeah, I was even complaining about all the tie-ins. I was getting overwhelmed by it, but the main story and the Venoms and stuff like that's really tied into the main story has been fantastic.
Yeah. Well,
I hate it's almost up.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too, because this has been really solid, really consistent. I feel like this is going to stick the landing pretty well. This was the crucial issue, I think, right? Yeah. This set everything up and gave it a believable path to finishing up, and I think it's gonna wrap it up to everybody's satisfaction. And then what do we read? I mean, we still read comics, obviously, but I guess they're trying to get us excited about the Heroes Reborn again thing, and I'm not really excited about that yet.
Did either one of you guys read Planet of the Symbiotes?
No, I haven't.
So you haven't seen the American Kaiju yet? It's see if I can get his name right. I believe it's Corporal Jonathan Zilla, the American Kaiju, American soldier that's taken a dirty offshoot brand of the Super Soldier Serum. It's turned him into a giant kaiju that he speaks in red, white, and blue lettering and has like sort of a red, white, and blue chest thing. And he's bigger than Godzilla, and he's just wiping the floor with the dragons.
And his last
name is ridiculous. But it's so ridiculous, it's funny.
Huh. Of course, I'll have to see it, but
you gotta look at it.
I'll take the one, but I gotta be honest, that sounds kind of cheesy. That sounds like
kind of cheesy, kind of dumb. Oh yeah, Corporal Todd Ziller, the American Kaiju.
Todd Ziller.
Corporal Todd Ziller.
Todd Ziller.
It's terrible. But it's if you want to laugh, folks.
That is awful.
Yeah.
If you want to laugh, read it. Don't think it's a serious tie-in to King Black. I mean, it is a tie-in. It probably ties in more than the Namor stories have been so far.
Well, you just talked about it right now. It's done more than Namor has.
Yeah. But Corporal Todd Ziller, the American Kaiju.
Wow.
I read it right before our call tonight.
Is that like are they trying to piggyback on the momentum of Kong versus Godzilla? I don't understand.
I don't know. I really do.
Well, at the end of this episode of King in Black, did you read that story?
Was that the X-Men title? Am I
Uh,
thinking of the right thing? That was
Yes, it's what was it?
it looked like a feudal Japan samurai type thing with X-Men characters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually did not read that. I was planning on going back and reading it.
I quickly read through it, but
Any good?
well, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I hate the artwork. I'll tell
The
you that.
art, that's why I kind of quickly flipped through it. The artwork was just.
It just looked like one of those real kind of off the wall short stories that you would put at the end of a comic book.
It looked kind of like the artwork you would see on one of like in a Cartoon Network animated series that's kind of low key, like a Steven Universe or something.
Yeah.
That kind of looked like that artwork. I don't know if the story's anything remotely like that, but the artwork kind of reminded me of the still version of that type of animation.
For those of you who are listening on the podcast, you can't see my reaction. Only because I can't come up with a sound that fully encapsulates.
Right.
And
it's kind of
maybe.
Yeah. Not feeling that personally. All right. So, did anybody read any other major stuff this week?
I was able to read the new Iron Man, which is excellent story. Basically, it's a lot of his old villains, but they've got how do I describe this? They're like become part of a cult. They've got a cult leader, and they're kind of fanatical religious cult, church of the technological, for lack of a better word. And they have actually broken Tony Stark's neck, and he's trapped in his armor for right now, temporarily.
Oh, wow.
And the art on it, the cover art alone is just phenomenal. It looks like Alex Ross type cover art.
Mm. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of hype about the covers. Yeah,
the covers are good. The story's good. If you're a casual Iron Man fan, you might not like this, but if you kind of have read Iron Man for years, you'll like this. Also read the newest Thor, which had a great cameo from the Thunder That Hops, Thorog.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
that was actually the battle with what is his name, Lockjaw and Thorog versus Donald Blake. That was really good. Thorog took it to him.
I'm not sure where the Irish minstrels came into this.
Okay? I'm not the only one hearing that. Good.
The Irish minstrels are telling us it's time to wrap up the show, folks.
Yes. Okay. I did mention I had a house full of boys. I see one of them coming down the stairs now. So you didn't play an Irish tune just now, did you? Okay, that's coming from somebody else. It's not my house. We heard an Irish tune come through our podcast here.
Danny was about to dance a jig. I'm not really sure that's appropriate at this point. But, it was going to happen. All right, well, folks, we will pull the plug on this this comedy.
Why?
This train wreck of a show.
I want to talk some more McFarlane, actually.
Yeah, I do too, lazy bum.
We're going to have a lot more time to talk more McFarlane with you two gentlemen, but we will do that. Now we're gonna pause, have a word from our sponsors, and then after that, you're all going to listen to me talk to David Taylor II, and have a really awesome conversation there. Those of you on YouTube, you can maybe see the cover of my brand new copy of Volume 1 of Runners from Sean Wang. Awesome series, sci-fi, super fun stuff. It has a slight Star Wars vibe to it, to be honest. Just the fun adventure. We hope to be talking to Sean mid-March, He wants to come on the show and hype Volume Three's release, and so around about mid March is when that's going to happen. We'll keep everybody posted as that comes to fruition. But right now, we've got David Taylor II coming up right after the break. Paul, Danny, tell the folks goodbye.
Stay classy, folks.
All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Longbox. I am your host, Bryan Lamb, and my cohorts are absent tonight. Paul is trying to break into the Rock of Eternity, and Danny is off somewhere thinking about Aunt May or something. I'm not really sure what he's doing. But I am joined tonight by David Taylor II, and I'm very, very glad to have this guy on and talk some comic stuff. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So, first of all, you're our first guest on the show, other than just me and Paul and Danny. So,
Okay.
that's a milestone in and of itself.
Cool. I like milestones.
But also, you are an actual comic book author, right?
I am. I have, Lord have mercy. I have so much that I have in the works. And let me tell you, it's been an education. Being an indie writer and being an indie publisher, I knew it from music because music is like my main career, but obviously I'm an author too. But all the jobs that need to be done still have to be done. It's just that you either have to do them or coordinate them being done. That's the main difference from working with an established publisher or being an indie, because the amount of work and the kind of work doesn't change. It's the responsibility and who has to take care of it that changes.
I see.
So I have in my series, I have all my superhero stuff is still in. I can't mention any of it without it being a spoiler. But I can talk about my Realm series stuff. I created a world about around the idea of how did evil get into our existence? Because I wanted to do something where I could have conversations with people where we just talk about life stuff. And what most people want to know is, why do bad things happen to good people? Why is there evil in the world? Why? And so I created a whole story world based on Bible events, scripture about how the war in heaven got started, how the devil fell to earth, how humans get involved, and a lot of things that happened in a time period before mankind was on the earth, and a whole bunch of stuff. And so I have a couple of trade paperbacks I'm working on, and then my comic series is Nephilim Wars.
Yes.
While writing that, however, I ran into a lot of challenges to be professional. I'll say I ran into a lot of challenges. And so it's really been an education trying to get all that stuff done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when Nephilim Wars can find its way out into the general public. That looks really intriguing. That's one of those little.
Yeah,
that's one of those little things in the Bible about the Nephilim that can
what?
really spark your creative juices and your imagination about what exactly was going on there, right?
Well, one of the things that people don't understand is that superpowers are real. They're actually a real thing. They just don't look like we do it with costume superheroes.
Right.
But the whole concept of Nephilim is that angels, which immediately then genders them because they saw human women and decided they're so hot, I got to get with that. And so they left heaven and got them some human babes and made children. And so now those are our first mutants because they're human angel hybrids. And that is the line that Goliath comes from in the Bible, the one that I was talking about, David and Goliath. Well, Goliath was 9 feet tall. He actually came from a race of giants. And that race originated with Nephilim, with human angel hybrid babies. So all that stuff we talk about, mutants and hybrids and powers, all that stuff is literally actually real. It just doesn't look like Colossus and Nightcrawler and all that, but it's real.
Right.
And
Right.
so I love it. So that's where I wanted to start with that kind of thing. And so I have a trade paperbacks talk about before mankind, but my comic book is actually set in the 30th century, and it talks about another Nephilim invasion. Because the whole premise is, since they're half human, they feel like they have a right to Earth like we do, and we feel like they don't. So that's kind of the idea.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I look forward to the day when we can promote that as a
Oh, thank
finished
you.
product. You also have written several books, right?
Yes, yes. I've got fantasy novels. I got sci-fi stuff in the works. I have a lot of children's books. There are a lot of children's books, and I also have an RPG, a role-playing game that I created with a partner. And when I made the Realm series, the Realm is what I'm using to refer to heaven. I wanted a lot of different content in it. So I've got novels, and then with these next couple of books, I have a side book, a novella, then I've got a role playing game, then I've got comic books, then I've got coloring books. So I have like a whole lot of different content, which is like my original goal. And I will say to anybody watching, to any indie creator, I definitely underestimated the time and resources to make all that happen. I mean, I knew I could do it, but to really get that done and really get it done right, you are juggling 20 things at a time. So yeah, so I have quite a few books I've written, and they'll continue to write. I got a lot of stuff coming out this year.
You wear a lot of hats, my friend. A lot of hats. You can,
Yeah, you're supposed to do stuff you're passionate about.
right? Well, you can tell that you're passionate about creating, and I can also tell you are passionate about comic books because on Twitter, you are just a wealth of knowledge about comics in general, and it's it's funny because a lot of the things that I'm really passionate about in the world of comics are kind of, we intersect the same stuff. Um,
Uh-huh.
so, what are you reading right now? What are your maybe top three comics that you're reading right now?
Top three comics that I'm reading right now. I'm reading more retro stuff because I'm trying to catch up with stuff that I didn't collect in floppy format. Waited for the trade paperbacks. So a lot of the stuff that's coming out now, as you and I both know, we're in a heavy transition period. And so what we've been experiencing for the past 2 to 5 years is a lot of reboots, a lot of reshuffling, a lot of redefinitions, and that's common with long running intellectual property. That's not a new experience, but there's not a whole lot. Like, I did like when Dr. Doom became Iron Man. I did read that for a while. I really liked that series. And but a lot of what's happening now seems to be a push for redefinition. So I'm spending most of my energy, like for example, what I've really been loving is the Charles Soule Darth Vader series. I know that's older.
Yeah.
I know it's been a long time ago, but I like to read it all at once. So I'll wait for the trade paperback so I can just tear through it. And I'm reading Bendis's Superman, Bendis's Man of Steel. So I'm trying to catch up with those things, but it's easier on the wallet when you can pick and choose with trades
Right.
than it is having a pull list. You know, back in the days when comics were a little bit cheaper, a pull list is one thing, but when you start getting to the 250 to 450 to $5 range for just a regular floppy, well, that's a 32-page book, and 22 pages of that is the actual comic.
Right.
So you got 10 pages of ads, and so you're only getting 22 pages for that, and then depending on how it's written, several years ago, they started the trend of, because way back in the day, crossovers were annual events, but you got to be over 40 to even know what I'm talking about. So when we were going to have like a crisis, or they're going to Earth 2 or something like that, that was a big deal because that happened this many times a year, once a year. But now, for the past 10 or 15, 20 years, what happens, because you can see it like with Death in the Family, now they'll do a storyline, then they're going to run it through all the individual books of the characters in that family. So there's like a main book, and then there's stories that happen in the side books. And so by the time you get through with that, you're going to be spending several $100s if you want all of that.
Yep.
So that's why now I'm just kind of waiting to then go back and kind of retroactively pick up. So the Man of Steel business, I'm really trying to check that out and get into those ideas to see what he added. I love almost everything in the Darth Vader solo series, but especially Charles Soule's works.
Yep.
Really love that. I'm trying to think, and then and most of the rest of the time I'm actually writing stuff, so I spend more time writing than reading.
Right. You're creating a lot of stuff. I don't know how you have time to read anything.
Right. Well, I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and then I've been trying to look at some different indie books, but again, my mind's always buzzing with something I'm trying to create.
Right.
So,
it's interesting you mentioned kind of the format of crossovers. So we've been trying to keep up with the King in Black crossover event with Marvel, and I'm not a massive Marvel guy. I grew up DC and still have tended to lean DC's characters, but this King in Black thing like is the epitome of that monetization of a crossover. You have the main storyline, then you have Venom ties into it, and then like every comic in the entire Marvel catalog has some sort of tie into it. So money is just, there's no way anybody could keep up with all of it. And as much as we've tried, I talked with Paul the other night about if Crisis on Infinite Earths happened now, like if that event happened today, I don't know if I would be like able to deal with what I'm calling the crossover burnout, because that was a year-long event.
right.
I'm done with King Black, and it's not even over. It's a 5-issue series, and it's just there's so much stuff. Because we get to
here's the thing, and it goes to what I was saying before. Like when I saw, like when they were doing Gwenom, everybody knows I love Gwen Stacy and I love Spider Gwen, but everybody does not have to be possessed by a symbiote.
Right.
And that is an example of the point I'm trying to make here, and that is that we've come into a period where we have such an overabundance of content. There's a principle missing, and the principle missing is that value increases with scarcity. So it's basic supply and demand. And so when you have something that only happens annually or every 5 years, then no way it's not major. But when you have something that's happening almost constantly, then that kind of diminishes the value, diminishes the interest, it diminishes the selling point. Because, why would I want to watch that when I know, 3 weeks from now, there's going to be a new thing? Like, okay, like when I was reading several years ago when they were doing AVX, I thought Avengers versus X-Men was kind of interesting. And then they made sure that everybody got Phoenix power. And then Scott kills Professor X. Okay, that completely knocked me out of that whole. I'm like, what?
Right.
And then Scott continues this spiral where he just goes extreme and becomes radical, and he becomes much more terrorist-like and much more terrorist in his thinking. And Scott Summers had always been groomed to be the heir apparent of Charles's dream.
Yep.
But now all of a sudden, Magneto has more integrity than Scott Summers. And I'm saying, what? And so sometimes in those big events, they'll do something like that. And it just kicks me out of it. I'm like, okay, well, like recently, you're talking about recent stuff. I wanted to read about Peter marrying Mary Jane, but then I realized, or remarrying Mary, but then I realized it's too little too late. I don't care.
Yep.
After going through one more day and brand new day and all the crap we've been through, I don't care now. And whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, you can't reignite that spark that far down the
So,
road, right?
I mean, does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, and then also, now this is, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. This is natural because it comes along with living. There's a natural thing that happens when you have long running IP.
Right.
When you have long running IP, what happens is there's several periods where it needs to be refreshed. Because after a while, the same story world and the same stories are just going to get stale. And so, and you can see that as we go through the comics, how they told stories for that time period and they were apropos for the time period. But then it's like, we need to do something new. So people think that a lot of longtime comic fans have a problem with that, but I don't have a problem with that. That's natural. That's going to happen. If you have a character that's been around for 80 years, they can't stay the same as they were when they were created. No problem. It's just that the takes on them these days have moved towards either identity politics, forced diversity, or nihilism, or a combination of the three.
Yeah.
That, basically life isn't worth living because nobody gets a happy ending. And I'm like, dude, we even got dark and pessimistic. I'm like, I don't read comic books for pessimism.
Yes.
I read comic books for optimism.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes this world is so dark,
Yeah.
you want to escape from this world. You don't want to have a reflection of this world in your entertainment all the time. It's I don't know, the DC future state stuff. I don't know if you've read any of that, but
And if I do, what some of it.
but
I read
it's
some of it, but
so
once
dark.
again, well, it's dark and it's also Superman is a touchstone, whether people like that or not, whether they accept it or not, it's fact. When you're a touchstone character, everything will be bounced off of you. So whenever they're introducing somebody new, they say, look, I'm stronger than Superman. Look, I'm faster than Superman. Look, I can knock Superman down with a punch. Look, that kind of thing makes me tired. I'm like, you ain't gonna never be Superman. There'll never be another Superman. There's other popular heroes, but there's never going to be another Superman. So just your thing be your thing. You're not gonna. It's like when you bring in guest artists on. There's nothing wrong with having guest artists on record, but if the only reason your record sells is because of the guest artist, then that wasn't you. And so that's what people don't understand about using Superman as a touchstone. That you got to bring in the big guns, you got to bring in Superman and Batman and Flash to sell your new character, because your new character can't stand on their own. That's all that proves, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
That's what Future State feels like. These new versions and blah blah blah. Man.
Yeah, there's a character that Bendis created in the DC universe as soon as he came over to the DC universe, Naomi. That I liked her comic, and I like it when they do something new, right? Create a new character, give somebody a new
Mhm.
push, but to constantly recast the same heroes over and over, it just gets tiresome.
Well, there's another convention that's kind of part and parcel of today's scene. That convention being there to be a need to bash what had come before. Now, I want to notice the transition between the Gold Age and the Silver Age and the Bronze Age, and the Bronze Age and the Dark Age. I want you to notice that very few of our new characters bashed the previous versions. As a matter of fact, Alan Bay's Flash on Jay Garrick's Flash. And so in previous incarnations, where we've been transitioning from one age to the other, one set of characters to the other, there's not discussion with putting down what had come before you. That's why I was about Black Canary. Most people don't know Black Canary is a legacy character. Black Canary got what she got from her mom. So it's kind of like Wonder Woman and Hippolyta. Hippolyta was retconned to be the Wonder Woman of World War I, and her two comes around in World War II. So Black Canary, Dinah Lance and Dinah Drake, legacy characters. And so she learned the crime fighting trade from her mom, which I think is the coolest thing ever.
Right, right.
Yeah, how cool would it be to have a superhero mom? How can you get cooler than that? So that's what I mean when I say there's this need to bash old, to create it, to it's antiquated, to bash the values under which it was created, to bash men bad, white men bad, all the different kind of stuff, and that permeates so much of new content, and it really stinks the place.
Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but one of our mutual acquaintances on Twitter was talking about, and it was a beautiful point, that you can only have deconstruction in comics for so long before you have to have a reconstruction period, and we're seeing so much deconstruction. Right? New things don't bother me. I like new things, but let's see new things that
That
build.
was my friend Carl Shinyama. Right, right, right. Carl Shinyama, one of good friends, he's one of Marvel life. But yeah, he's the one talking about how to have deconstruction. You gotta have some construction, and you got to go to new places. So I'll give you some examples. Like if I wrote Batman, here's what I do. The first thing I would do is I love the Bat family, but it's huge.
Yes.
So I would give each character their own city. They would not all be in Gotham City.
Hmm.
So just like we sent Nightwing to Bloodhaven, I would send each member of the Black family to their own thing, deal with them there. When you do that, that makes them getting the real event. So if Batman's, in a situation to call his family from their own city, no, it's a major event when you're that way. So, that's just one example. Another example, they don't know what to do with Supergirl. So, but somebody suggested what Mark Waid did, just send her to the future and let her be a part of the Legion. I think that's right,
Yeah.
because once you get too many Kryptonians, once you get too many Korean lanterns and flashes, you have to ask yourself, why is there crime at all? How can there still be any crime when you have all
Right.
them Kryptonians, all them lanterns, and all them flashes? So I give everybody kind of their own space, and then when we get together, now that's an event. See what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, the Green
So yeah,
Lanterns, man, they're ridiculous. There's there's more Green Lanterns on Earth now than there are members of the Justice League at any given time, right? It's too much.
Mm-hmm. And now I was talking about the challenge of bringing Green Lanterns in live action.
Mm.
The challenge, the reason they struggle much with the Lantern Corps is because the main characters, Wonder Woman, Flash, Superman, Batman, even Aquaman, their powers are visceral. Their powers, for the most part, are something that we can do amplified. So we can see, so Superman has amplified vision. So we have strength. So Superman and Wonder Woman Diana have amplified strength. So we can run. Flash has amplified speed. So you can relate to that.
Yep.
It's a visceral thing. You know, we can fight bad fights, you know, like a master. You can relate to that. What we do at a exaggerated amplified, there is no life analog for a lantern where you create plasma-based sculptures based on your imagination, and you have to squeeze your will through a ring. There's no analog in life that you can relate that to. That's why lanterns are so hard to realize, because there's not a connecting point. And when something is just complete fantasy or there's no visceral connection, you have to make them connected on some way. And so when you add all that up, that means that they've kind of lost the concept of the lanterns, because lanterns are not cops, they're more paladins. They're more hired guns, you know, maybe going through the universe at the behest of the Guardians. Well, we're not, you know, 2 billion of them. Why is there crime? So we need to bring them numbers down a little bit and go back to, you know, maybe just a handful. And then we need to somehow give them a visceral analog in real life, and they would instantly become more interesting. You see what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, you're right. So, what do you think? Speaking of Green Lantern,
So that's what I'm hoping they HBO series. I'm hoping that they realize. Uh,
what do you think of
go
the
ahead,
Grant
go ahead.
Morrison Green Lantern series? Have you read any of that?
Um, I've read some of it. Um, more than always, he has a very particular slant has on his because he's kind of, what's the word I want? More the kind of people use in the worst way. Like, you know, that old guy that's always trying to relive his glory days. You know, that one girl that's always trying to get all the attention. You know, that one guy that just likes to fight all the time. Like, he can't go anywhere without a fight. He writes heroes like that, like people that you know, like
Right.
people in your neighborhood. So that's not good or bad. That's just kind of his bent. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so,
I think his run on Green
so
Lantern
some
has.
of the stuff I read, it was good. Uh,
Sorry, David. I think we've got some connection.
again, is Green Lantern. Yeah. The internet looks like it keeps going in and out.
So I was going to say, Grant Morrison
Is that
has.
better?
Yeah, that's a little better. Grant Morrison has he has a good track record with sci-fi stuff. So I think his run on Green
Yeah.
Lantern has kind of worked because he really kind of took Hal and put him on a lot of, kind of different situations than the normal Green Lantern storylines do. Um,
Mhm.
I wonder though after this, I think Hal's going to be benched for a while.
Well, the thing that happened with Hal, because I read one of the was it Rebirth? I read one of the stories anyway where he made his own ring. The
Yeah,
thing that happened with Hal is that Hal had to literally completely redefine himself. And when you're going to do that, that kind of goes against the concept of the Corps,
yeah,
because the Lantern Corps is kind of like the Marine Corps. It's about pledging your life and your duty in service of something greater than you. And so Hal, actually, ever since Parallax, Hal has been more of a Ronin, more of a Green Lantern Ronin,
yeah,
more of a masterless samurai. You know what I mean?
yeah. I see that. Yeah,
And so, and so going forward, like you said, people wanted to be about more Naomi and Kyle and all that. And so, but a real life Hal Jordan to me is Tom Cruise. So Tom Cruise is in his 50s. He's still making movies. He's still doing his own stunts. He's still living his life. And so I see the Green Lantern universe now as you have your veteran lanterns and then you have your young ones, and there's always room for both.
yeah,
And so I don't think they need to bench Hal, but I think they need to give him his proper place as a veteran lantern, as someone that's literally been to hell and back, someone that's died and come back, someone that's redefined themselves and their purpose. He needs to kind of be on a plane where all that can be honored. But that's not the same as somebody just starting out. He's not a novice lantern anymore.
right.
So
Yeah, I think the Green Lantern Corps is one of those opportunities, I guess, where they can deal with their legacy characters a little easier than in the rest of the DC universe, where the Flash. What do you do with 7 or 8 Flashes? There's it's not an easy fit to even spread them out because they can be anywhere instantly almost.
well, that's the thing. If you don't limit their speed to the speed of sound like they do with Quicksilver and Marvel, once you start getting into light speed and time travel, and once you start getting into being so fast that you can arrive before you left, where where you can get back and you haven't gone yet,
Yeah,
then why is there crime?
right.
Why is there crime? Because everything around you is a statue. You cannot be beaten. How can you be beaten when everything around you is a statue? It's not possible.
Right. And you
So,
can only have them face so many super speed villains before that starts to get really tired as well. So the limit is probably the best
well,
option.
I would, if we're going to go with the multiverse, I would put one Flash per world.
Yes.
So most people want Wally to be this world's Flash. So maybe we can put Barry on some other Earth because Jay would be on Earth 2. Maybe Barry could go on Earth 3 and fight the crime syndicate,
Yeah.
fight, Johnny Quick, um, put Jesse and Johnny on a world. Liberty Bell's also a speedster.
Yep.
And then Impulse is a speedster from the future. I'd probably take him back to the future or put him on the Legion.
Yeah.
But I'd spread them out so you only have one speedster per world. And then it's easier to write stories that way because once you take the Flash out, then you still have characters with speed, but you don't have that ridiculous kind of faster than the ticks of a second speed.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always, like I said, I'm a big DC fan, but it it strikes me that DC is the only company that wrestles with its own system quite the way that they do. Like Marvel just, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
pretend that those guys are still, in their prime and they never age and just keep telling stories with them. Whereas DC, the crisis events typically are about trying to wrestle with their own continuity somehow. And it's funny to me because they have a built-in answer to that problem right there in the multiverse, right? If you want to try something new, then just shift your focus to another Earth for a while, right? All these new characters from the future state, just shift your focus to a new Earth and let those guys have a time and see, what people think, without having to destroy everything in the mainstream DC universe to get there.
Right, right. Well, part of the problem there is, how can I put this? Okay, it's like Tom Brady. Tom Brady, like Michael Jordan, is the GOAT. But because of the nature of the sport, they don't play single sports, they play team sports. You got to have the team around you that allows you to do what you do, because you cannot win the game by yourself. Marvel understands that, DC does not. So Marvel understands we have to put some people in key positions and then give them enough of a team so that we can manage the IP. But DC is always more like trying to have 4 or 5 directions at once, or no direction. So they don't have key people in place with an overarching vision to kind of manage all of that. And it's much more of a, see, they made a huge mistake. Like, okay, when you watch the Super Bowl, Super Bowls are either blowouts, they're over at the half, or they're going to come down to the last play.
Yeah.
Super Bowls are not in the middle. You know what I mean? They're extremely boring, they're over really quickly, or you're going to fight for that last point.
Yep.
Well, when you do that, who's going to win the game is the person that doesn't make the key mistake in the fourth quarter or overtime. If you look at almost every game, there's a key play that was blown, a coverage blown, a miscue, a stupid penalty, and that's what loses the game. Okay, well, that's what DC did when they put themselves in a position of playing catch up. They were in the movie game before Marvel, and they have more recognized intellectual property. So they should have done a solo film into Justice League first and set the tone. But they fooled around and let Marvel do it with a bunch of lesser known characters because they had jobbed out Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Spider-Man. So they had to go to what was then, at that point, what they considered B characters. But Downey and Chris Evans and Hemsworth and Scarlett and Renner took the Avengers, and now they're A-list. So the movie that changed the game was the Avengers 2012. It was the first superhero movie to clear $1 billion, billion with a B. When the world saw that you could gross that kind of money with a superhero flick, everything changed. That was the key movie. And that whole thing was started in 2008 with Jon Favreau's Iron Man. That had to work, or else there wouldn't have been any Avengers. So DC should have recognized that and done that years ago.
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Justice League, Martian Manhunter, Justice League, Manhunter, Justice League. So they should have done that years ago. But instead, they let Marvel do it, and now, see, that was the botched coverage in the fourth quarter. Now they're playing catch up, and you can't catch up to what Marvel's done. Marvel's already using WandaVision to give us emotional buy-in to Phase 4. Because WandaVision as a marketing tool is brilliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four, Inhumans, Doctor Strange, Multiverse, Spider-Man. There's nothing that's not going to spiral out of WandaVision.
Yep.
So that is just pure genius.
Yes.
And see, so Marvel's already there. See what I mean? So DC could have been there a long time ago. Outsiders, Terrifics, Titans, but they did Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn. Yeah, no. No.
And it's such a flip flop, man,
So,
because I'm old enough to remember when Marvel movies were absolute garbage. They made them and then wouldn't even show them in theaters. They were so bad because Stan Lee just optioned it out to anybody and everybody to make a movie. And DC was so far ahead, and they fell so far. Wow. Yeah, you're right. Let's put them in a hole.
really, yeah, I mean, but it's really about having a vision. It's really about having a forward vision.
Mm.
And Feige really brought that. And there's no DC analog to Kevin Feige.
No.
And so, now.
If they wanted Jeff Johns to be that.
We talk about it all the time. Well, the thing about it is, one of the best things about being a leader or a manager is that you kind of have to, know how to get the right people for the job, and then you have to let them do what they do with guidelines. So that's kind of how Feige makes his movies. He says, we're going to bring in a director and we're going to let them bring their sensibilities to it, but we're also going to insist that certain things happen because we're building a bigger picture. That's kind of been their formula.
Yep.
That is not what Warner Brothers DC does. What they do is they bring people in that are the wrong fit for their IP. And then it just causes divisiveness among fans. And then that's why you never get any coherent anything.
Yep. Man, I could literally sit here and talk this stuff with you for hours, but you're a busy guy, and I don't want to monopolize your time here. Let me close out with first of all a question. Who is your number one character? And I know that's a cliched thing, but who's your number one character? If you got to start with just one character and build a universe, who do you pick?
No, those are two different questions. Okay, so I'll answer them. Those are two different questions.
Okay.
If you're just talking superheroes, right?
Yep.
Okay. My number one favorite character is Batman. And the reason that Batman is my favorite character is because people say that he's not relatable, but he is relatable. The part that's not relatable is him being a one percenter, because only 1% are one percenters, and him having that superhuman durability. That's, there are such a thing as one percenters, that's real life. Superhuman durability is suspension of disbelief, that's comic book physics. Okay. But what is relatable is a young boy that had life happen to him and he felt powerless. And he got so angry, so scarred, so troubled from evil invading his life until he dedicated himself to doing something about it. And he's not always right, but he is always determined. And that's what I love about Batman, is that he didn't whine. My dad was not a whiner. I watched my father work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week after he had a stroke.
Wow.
So my dad was not a whiner. So I can just relate to young Bruce saying, just wait till I grow up. Just wait. I'm gonna put myself in a position to where I'm gonna become a terror to the thing that terrified me. That's why I love Batman. If I had one character that I would start with and build a world, it would most likely be Captain Marvel or Martian Manhunter. It'd be one of those two. And the reason I would pick one of those two is because there's so much unexplored territory. People don't understand that Captain Marvel, Shazam, is ultimate wish fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having the ability to live in two worlds. And there's a whole thing with the pantheon of his gods. I studied Greek mythology when I was a child because I always loved it. So there's a whole bunch of stories I would tell that have to do because Captain Marvel is a creature of two worlds. He's got the power of the mythological gods on a cosmic level, anchored in the heart of a young boy. And the reason he's that is because of Black Adam. Because the wizard saw, if I grant these powers to someone whose heart is not worthy, they become genocidal. Because Black Adam has committed genocide. He's wiped out nations of people, and the wizard's like, what have I done?
Right.
So that's why he picked Billy. And to this day, most people don't understand that. So there's so much there to be done. And I would also make Captain Marvel always, always, always a champion of children's causes. Like one of the ideas I had for the TV show The Flash is that Iris got a tip that somebody was kidnapping children in a seedy part of Central City. Barry goes over there to check it out and meets Billy Batson. And what we would come to understand is that the wizard and Savannah are two sides of the same coin. The wizard is dealing with kids because he's trying to find a champion. Dr. Savannah is dealing with kids because he's trying to make a super soldier. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's a
Yeah.
lot of yin and yang. There's a lot of yin and yang there, and I would have introduced that on the Flash as a backdoor pilot, the same way the Flash was introduced on Arrow as a backdoor pilot. But for Billy to still be a kid, whenever there are kid-based issues, because Iris could do a lot of investigative reporting about how there's something going on around this subway. There's something going around in this part of town where children seem to disappear here. And then we can see just how monstrous Savannah is because he does human experiments. He does human cloning. He does DNA mixing and matching. He's just like, he's an old school evil genius type doctor that does really grotesque things. There's a lot you could do with that.
Yeah.
And so the wizard would need somebody who has a heart that says, I'm a kid. I would never let a kid be hurt like that. I would never sit back and let you do that to people my age. Says Shazam, now I'm a grown man. I have the power to stop you. So there's a lot of great stories. And like I said, once you involve Barry and Iris, you root it in the DC world because you can bring that back. Iris can do follow-up stories.
Yep.
And once Barry meets Billy, because people are always amazed when they find out that Captain Marvel is a kid inside. And one thing that we know about CW's Barry Allen is that he's dealing with losing his mom as a child. So there'd be a bond there.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
So there's so much you could do, so much I would do with a Captain Marvel kind of thing, because there's so much more unexplored territory. And then he has a rogues gallery that I would update because the original kind of gold and silver age versions are a little goofy, but there's a way to update them for modern times. Like Captain Marvel has several foes that say magic words and transform like he does, not just Black Adam.
Right.
And so when you're dealing with magic, the thing is, what are the limitations? And I would use that as a springboard to bring in Zatanna. Because Zatanna's style of magic is not the same as a wizard. It's not the same kind of thing. See, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that can be done with the Captain Marvel, Billy Batson kind of platform. So probably that.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. You really could springboard into a lot of different things and branch out from him. That's a lot
Hmm.
of empty
Hmm.
spaces there that nobody's ever looked into. So both of
Exactly.
those.
Exactly.
So what project are you working on that you're most excited about that you can plug here?
The sequel to my first novel. My first novel was Lucifer, Soldiers, Serpents, and Sin, Book One.
Right.
Book Two has been finished for a while, is in the editing stage. Book Two is called Provoke the Past. So the first book was A Clash of Lightning and Thunder, but book two is called Provoke the Past. And I've got a lot of great things going on with what happens from the first fight. There's the core relationship is Lucifer and Michael, and what happens in that relationship. And because I'm fascinated by the idea of convincing angels to turn against God and side with you. What did he say to them
Right. Right.
that would make heavenly beings want to revolt against God? And so, my answer to that question is that maybe they were disgruntled, maybe they were ungrateful like he was. He appealed to something to create an army. And so, book two dives a little deeper into that psychology. And then, again, what I've done with my story world is every piece of content ties into something else. So, you see something from every other piece of content in the story world in this novel. So it originally started out as a trilogy, but now it's a quadrilogy with a side book. So now it's actually five. So that second one, once we get the editing done, is going to drop this year. And I'm so excited. And I'm trying to get the money and the artists, everything together because, you know, dealing with certain people, whatever. Trying to get the money I need to finish. The challenge I ran into with Nephilim Wars was when I did my fundraising. I part of my tiers was I gave people cameos and recurring characters in the book, and I really love that. I'm really excited about that. But what ended up happening was that I had to expand the book because a lot of people came and helped me, so I had to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff. So
Got
now my book got exponentially bigger, and that's when I ran into problems trying to finish because it was more than I had originally planned. So I'm trying to get the money together to get that done, and hopefully we can drop both of those this year. So
it.
that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah. Yeah. Rightfully so. All right. Well, listen, comic book nerds. This guy knows a lot about comics. You are steeped in the lore, David, and it just the joy of comics just comes right out of you, man. And I encourage everybody to check out Lucifer, Soldiers, Serpents, and Sin, and we'll all look forward to book two this year, and hopefully Nephilim Wars right there with it this year. And um, man, I mean, anytime you want to come back and talk comics, or if you want to come on World Class Nerd, our other show, and talk WandaVision, we're all nuts talking about WandaVision. So you're always welcome here as a guest, man. I appreciate your time. And any final words for the Tales from the Longbox fans out there?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time as well. And I will take you up on that offer on WandaVision because I'd love to talk about that too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, well, folks, we'll be back in a few days with another Paul's pull list where he'll try to still dig into the big mess of comics that are coming out and find a few gems for everybody to spend some money on. So, on behalf of David Taylor II and my missing companions, Paul and Danny, this is Bryan saying goodbye from Tales from the Long Box.